Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Nick here with Shelf-Esteem, and these are the books I read, the music I wrote, and all the things that happened in May 2024. Hey everybody, welcome back again. I'm Nick here with Shelf-Esteem. I am a composer for film, television, and gaming, specializing in book adaptations. I'm also now a booktuber. You might have heard some of my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Material Season 3, and the official Brent Weeks companion album for his series Lightbringer. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the things that happened for me in May and the books I read, and I love making this a dialogue and discussion, that we can talk about the books that, we really enjoyed this month. So definitely let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular that resonated with you, either any of the books on my list or the books that you read. I'd love to hear from you. I love chatting with you all. So this month was kind of interesting for me. I'm usually, much more strict on a TBR. And lately I've been kind of getting into more mood-based reading. And although the quantity of books I read has gotten less because I end up kind of really savoring the books I'm enjoying. And then also, I may pause halfway through a book, put it down and read something else for a while, and then come back and pick up that book. And it's all been for how can I maximize enjoyment and keep this fun? And that's kind of the crux of my channel and my personal philosophy on reading, just whatever applies to me. Obviously everybody has different reading goals and things like that, but that's really what works for me. So without further ado, these are the books that I read in May. First of all, I'm pulling out of this pile here. I had done a video about this book because it captured my heart, and it is none other than Ken Follett's Fall of Giants, book 1 in the Century Trilogy, starting 5 families' kind of history as they are in these events that take place over 100 years of history, from 1900 to about the year 2000. So this first book covers like World War I, the Russian Revolution, up until about, I think it's like 1918, 1919. So really fascinating take on the events of the time. The character development is fantastic. I'm not even really much into romance in my books, but somehow he has 3 different romances going on and you're equally invested in all of them. Very rare for an author to do that. And, this is 1,000 pages almost. And, it's like walls of text, right? Like it's just like text, text, text everywhere. And somehow you are riveted throughout the whole thing. I think it's because Ken Follett kind of cut his teeth on thrillers. So he knows how to pace a novel, whether it be 200 pages or 1,000 pages. And he does it in spades here. So, I'm going to leave a link up here for a longer review I kind of mentioned about this book. Because I'm just so passionate about it, and it's kind of lesser known of Ken Follett's works compared to, like, say, Pillars of the Earth or his Kingsbridge series. So I highly recommend you check it out if you're looking to dip your toes into historical fiction like I have been as of late, and even if you don't have much experience in that genre, this is a very easy read, and the characters are fantastic. So this was book 1. And this kind of took me like 12 days to read, it was pretty hefty. So a lot of my month was taken up by this book, but I regret nothing. So what am I going to rate this book? An easy 5 out of 5. And I'm so eager to pick up the second book, Winter of the World. So I'm really excited to check that out and kind of see how the story continues into World War II and the history surrounding that. So highly recommend you check it out. The second one was, and I just finished this like a few days ago, and so I got a chance to process kind of how I felt about the book, and it is a fantasy novel, none other than Joe Abercrombie's The Heroes, book 2 of his standalones in his First Law universe. This is book 5 of the 9 that he's written in that universe, and I gotta say, I loved it. I thought, usually when you see a book where it covers a battle, right? It's very rare that a book will cover just one battle, right? So this is like a 600-something page book. And somehow he makes this battle really compelling because you're seeing it from multiple POVs. You're seeing it not only from the generals and the people who are in power, but the random, foot soldier, the people who are on the front lines. What are their thoughts through this whole thing? What are their motivations? How do they feel about the side that they're fighting on? And the idea that, like, who is a hero? What is considered a hero? Maybe the idea of a hero, somebody who sacrifices themselves for the greater good. Joe Abercrombie kind of makes you question, like, is that altruistic motive really altruistic? Is it really a valid motive in war, in times of war? Really interesting take on that. I will say personally that this book didn't quite grab me as much as the first 4 that I've read. I would say it's probably my least favorite of the 5 that I've read so far. However, I still loved it. So that gives you an idea on how good Joe Abercrombie's books are. So I would give this a solid 3.75 out of 5. So I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads. But yeah, 3.75 out of 5. I thought it was not without its pacing issues, but I thought that the character development is on full display here. So I highly recommend you check out Joe Abercrombie's The Heroes if you haven't already. Now, the next book I read almost in its entirety, and there's a reason for that. I left one of the short stories in this collection for another time because that book is none other than Stephen King's You Like It Darker. So this is the short story collection that just came out May 21st. So I just blew through it in a couple days. I absolutely loved it. I think this is King's return to form. I think a lot of people who've been feeling like, oh, his stuff lately has not been dark enough, or, you know, it's kind of like more into the hard case crime stuff, or this and that. This is kind of a return to the twisted mind of Stephen King. So if you like that kind of stuff, definitely check it out. But it's not just disturbing for disturbing's sake. There's a story called Two Talented Bastards in this, where it's kind of a little bit about a friendship and a supernatural occurrence, and makes you question the idea of like, where does talent come from? Is it born out of something? Is there like a watershed moment that defines, you know, when talent springs forth in someone's life? Really fascinating stuff. Now, the one short story I have not read is Rattlesnakes. And the reason being is a sequel to Cujo. And so I'm going to read Cujo first before I finish this one. And I'm actually doing a buddy read with Disquieting Dragons, which I'm really excited to kind of read alongside him. Linking his channel below as well, so you can check it out. Great channel. I highly recommend you check him out. But yeah, so I'm saving Rattlesnakes for after I can finish Cujo, and then it'll be kind of a little bit better to kind of get some context on the characters. I don't want anything spoiled for me before I dive into that. But I'm basically like 90% done with You Like It Darker by Stephen King. So if you haven't checked it out, absolutely recommend. I would give this probably so far a 4.5 out of 5. And the only reason I haven't given it a full on 5 is a couple of the stories that were like 8 pages long, 10 pages long. You read them and they go, you go kind of like, I wish there was a bit more time to develop these characters. Because just as you start getting into the story, it's over, right? And that's not, you know, necessarily a bad thing, but I felt like some of the ones that shine, you know, those other ones pale a little bit in comparison. But 4.5 out of 5, I feel very solid with that choice. The next book that I kind of read about halfway through, so this is where that whole mood-based reading comes in, is I had mentioned in another video, and I'm linking that up here as well, that I had restarted a series I'd previously DNF'd. And I'd read 2.5 books, didn't understand what was going on, didn't have the fantasy like vocabulary at the time, because I read it like 4.5 years ago now. And so I quit it, but I'd always wanted to come back when I was a little bit more ready. And now, after reading John Gwynne, Brandon Sanderson, Song of Ice and Fire, so many different fantasy series, I feel much more well versed in the vernacular of fantasy. And so I wanted to revisit, and I have started again Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and the first book, Gardens of the Moon. So I think this book gets a bad rap. You know, I've now read about half of it. And a lot of people say it's very disjointed and stilted, and it's kind of hard to know what's going on. It kind of drops you in the middle. I would say that's absolutely true. But if you've read a bunch of fantasy before, I don't think this is as intimidating as it originally comes across. I think if you take your time with it and give yourself pauses and kind of read other stuff and come back to it, you can kind of maintain that fun of it. The joy of discovery is something that is Erickson's strong point, and his prose is beautiful, and I've come to appreciate it now more on the second go around, as I'm not spending time just like flailing my arms trying to figure out what's going on and not having the capacity to do so. So I'm really excited about this journey. I'm definitely going to continue on the Steven Erikson train these next few months with the coming books, but I'm going to probably try to, you know, work through this in June as well. So Gardens of the Moon was the 4th book that I got a chance to read through a little bit. So this is the next one. And it's a little too early to give a star rating just because I haven't finished it yet, but I will update that as soon as I get a chance to finish this one later in June. And the final book may surprise you because it's completely different than a lot of the other ones, and that is none other than The One Thing. So basically, this is a nonfiction book, and I always like to break up my, storytelling reading, my fiction reading, in fantasy, sci-fi, horror, historical fiction, that kind of thing, with something that is nonfiction and kind of gets me to think about productivity or, self-development, personal development, a career, and that kind of a thing in a different light. And this book has been interesting. I've read about, maybe a third of it, and it's a very small book. I've been taking my time with it, reading a page here, page there, because a lot of the advice is very actionable and I want the information to marinate a little bit. But the central premise of this book, if you haven't read it or haven't heard of it, is that we are all inundated in this age of social media with so many distractions. I know for me, it's so hard to concentrate, always being on the phone and trying to figure out, what am I actually supposed to be doing in the day? We often find ourselves doing the things that feel like low-hanging fruit for us, right? Not necessarily the thing that's going to propel us forward in our lives, in our careers, but the things that feel like, oh, I'm putting out a fire today. I have to check this email. I have to do this thing. So this book is what is the one thing you can focus at any given moment? And how do you figure out what that one thing is? I think there's a two-parter, right? Because you don't necessarily know what you don't know. And so if you're trying to figure out what's the most important thing to do in the moment, that's its own set of challenges. And then the second challenge is, how do you actually do that one thing in the moment when you need to? And so I'm really excited to see how this kind of, helps me in music career, in keeping up with this booktube channel and all the host of other responsibilities that we all have. It's like trying to juggle multiple hats. And I'm always trying to figure out how to do that more joyously, how to do that more purposefully, and kind of how to do that without driving myself crazy in the process. So that's always the goal, right? So the one thing. So I'm about a third through this. I'm probably going to pick at this as well in the coming month. And I'm excited to, kind of see, and it's again too early for a star rating on this one, but I'm looking forward to kind of updating you all. And if you're interested in more of this nonfiction content as well, just let me know in the comments as well, because, this channel is relatively new. And I've been at it for maybe 6 weeks now, and I really want to make this channel a dialogue. It should be about what you all want to see on this channel. If you want to see less of this, happy to do that. If you want to see more of this, happy to do that as well. All right? So definitely let me know in the comments. Now, in terms of the channel news itself, I started the month, I think it was with 17 subscribers or something. And in the month of May alone, I got 100 subscribers. Thanks to you all. Thanks to amazing channels like Just Book Girl TV, Cliff's Dark Gems, for sharing and kind of giving me shout outs. Very kind and gracious of you all. I'm just so grateful to have met you all and to get to know more friends of the channel. Bookish Chaz, Disquiet and Dragons, some great friends and fellow booktubers. So I'm linking them all in the description, so definitely check them out if you haven't. They're just fantastic people, fantastic booktubers, and I just love what they're doing. And I love the kind of genres they're covering, the kind of content they're doing. So highly recommend you check it out. So as of the recording of this video, which I'm doing a couple days after the month, I'm recording this on June 2nd, I have 120 subscribers, and I couldn't be more thrilled. That's way faster, of growth than I could have ever imagined. I just was doing this for fun to see if I could even do it. And I figured I'd record a few videos and see kind of how it turns out. But you all have been so kind and gracious. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for making this an incredible month on BookTube. And I'm excited to see what June holds. On the music front, it's been very interesting because, I think I mentioned to you in a previous video as well that I'm going to be releasing the soundtrack to a psychological horror film called Dead Whisper. And it's being distributed by Vertical Entertainment, and it's going to get a limited theatrical release on July 5th, and a soundtrack release on the same day, and then on VOD, video on demand, on July 9th. So there's a lot to do with that. I'm having a PR team help out with that, so it's going to be a lot of soundtrack promo over the coming weeks, and it's been a lot of getting the album mastered by a terrific engineer named Brian Taylor. He works a lot on Netflix stuff. He's just done a lot of cool things. He worked on The Walking Dead, Dead City. He's worked on yeah, a bunch of big projects, you know. So I'm really excited to have him on board, and he's really made the music sound next level. So I'm excited to share that. I'll keep you all updated in the coming months or in the coming weeks as things unfold. So that's been going on. I've been working on a personal album of songs that I kind of started writing a couple years ago. So I went into the studio all of last week, the last week of May, and recorded vocals for those songs, and I hired a vocal coach to help out with that. And it's been really fun kind of marrying these different loves and creating art for art's sake. So really excited about that. So that was the music front. And other than that, I'm really excited for June. I'm going to be going to the UK for like 10 days to visit my grandmother. She's turning 90, so it's kind of a surprise. And she's not on YouTube, so at least, you know, I'll know the surprise. The secret's safe with us, right? So I'm really excited to do that. But I'll keep you all posted on the June plans in the June update, which I'm going to be posting this week as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying, you know, kind of the spirit of this channel and what I'm trying to do here. I really want to foster a positive community of fellow book lovers, and I want to get some read-alongs going. I want to talk about the books that we care about, find new treasure troves of books that we don't know about, and highlight books that should be more known. So thank you so much for watching. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you all. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Be good to each other, be good to yourselves, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.